Salutations! This week we're going to be talking about pronouns. You've probably heard me mention that word a few times offhandedly as I've gone through our other lessons in this class over the past few weeks. Well, now we're going to dig a little deeper into what a pronoun is and why it's important in your sentences. What function does it serve? So there are a few different types of pronouns. I'll go through all of those with you, and I'm hoping that you're going to be able to apply this to your own writing smoothly as soon as we're done with this lesson. So first, let's talk about what a pronoun is. Well, a pronoun is a word that takes the place of another noun, another word in a sentence, to clarify something, and also to make sure you're less repetitive. If I had a sentence, for example, that said, if I had a sentence that said, Joe went to Bill's house. In this example, you can see I've got two proper nouns right there. Well, what if I've already referred to Joe once in the sentence before that? And this time, instead of being repetitive, I want to say, he went to Bill's house. In that example, I've got a pronoun now in place of my proper noun, Joe. So, he is an example of a pronoun. Or, let's say, Bill is actually who I am. If I were to be Bill, instead of referring to myself in the third person like that would be weird. Instead of doing that, maybe I'd say, he went to my house. My is also a pronoun. So you can see right here that the purpose of a pronoun is just to let the reader know, or is just to make a sentence a little less repetitive for a reader. Instead of continuing to say Joe, Joe, Joe over and over and over, or refer to myself in the third person, which would be very confusing for a reader, we're going to use pronouns to simplify things for them. Now, before we get into any specific material about pronouns, I do want to say you can overuse these. Look at pronouns as the salt on your meal, not the meal itself. You sprinkle these in there to simplify things for your reader and make meanings more clear. If you overuse them, it's only going to confuse them more because they're going to start wondering, well, who is he? Who is that word referring to? You know, or if you say they and you don't specify who they are, your reader's going to get confused. So make sure that you use these pronouns the way they're intended to be used and you're not overusing them. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the different types of pronouns out there. Alright, the first type of pronoun that you're going to see is the subject pronoun. Now you're already familiar with subjects. I know you have to be because I've already talked to you about these. But again, a subject in a sentence is just the thing that's doing something. And there are pronouns to specify what is the subject in a sentence. So if I have a word like I say I aced my test. Right here I've got I as a subject pronoun. So that's because there are specific pronouns that do specific functions. And maybe what I ought to do here is specify all the three different types of pronouns for you and then show you what they look like on a chart. Maybe I'll do it that way. So we got these subject pronouns. I've given you one example right here, but there are also other types. You'll have subject pronouns. You'll have object pronouns, which I would hope you can guess what those are too. Those are pronouns that specify a person that's having something done to them or being given something, receiving an action. And lastly, you'll have what are called possessive pronouns. And those are just pronouns that are used to show ownership of something, that someone is in control of something. Alright? Now I know this might seem really strange or vague right now, but that's just because I haven't given you any examples. So let's go ahead and look at a chart and this will start making a little more sense. Okay. Alright, on this chart, this is what, well, it's probably really blurry on your screen, but you can pull this up on our grammar lab, and what you'll see is it's broken down into subject pronouns, object pronouns, and possessive pronouns. And there are different types, and you need to recognize when to use these and when to use other ones. For example, you see singular subject pronouns are words like I, you, he, she, it. Like you'd say, I just ran a 100-yard dash. He just ran a 100-yard dash. She just ran a 100-yard dash. It was exciting. In all of those examples, those pronouns are subjects in the sentence. Think how embarrassing it would sound if you used an object pronoun instead and made the mistake of saying, me ran a 100-yard dash, him ran a 100-yard dash, her ran a 100-yard dash. That would confuse your reader. So that's why you need to know the difference between these three so that you know which pronoun to use at the right time. Same thing with the plural. We, for example, is a plural subject pronoun. We went to school today. Us, however, is a plural object pronoun. You would not say us went to school today. So if you've ever had a teacher get on your case and say it's so-and-so and I instead of so-and-so and me, or you should be saying we instead of us, that's what they're referring to. If they never explained that to you before, that's what it's all about. It's about you recognize the difference between a subject and an object. Here again, subject and an object. So you'll really just have to commit these to memory, but fortunately you can see it's not a very long list. But if you can understand that, you're going to make a lot fewer mistakes. And by the way, it's not always so-and-so and I. Let me show you an example here. Okay, so here my example says, Frank awarded the prize to Jerry and me. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, no, don't do that. It's supposed to be Jerry and I, correct? No, as a matter of fact, it's not. Look at what the sentence is doing. Who's the subject of the sentence? Frank, of course, because he's the one doing something in the sentence, right? He's awarding a prize. Who is the one receiving that action? Jerry and, you guessed it, me. We are objects in the sentence. Jerry and me are both object words in this sentence. So right here, I need to use an object pronoun. I would be incorrect to use a subject pronoun right here. So just don't be confused. There are situations where you'll say so-and-so and I. If I were to say, Jerry and I won the game for our team. In this situation, I would say Jerry and I instead of Jerry and me, because the word is in the subject's place. Okay? And notice also, I've got a possessive pronoun in here, our, showing ownership between multiple people, including myself. So right here, you've got some good examples of different ways that you can use pronouns in a sentence. So just get familiar with the material that's going to be posted on your Grammar Lab along with this video, and I think you'll grasp the concept pretty quickly. However, there's also this other term out there, antecedents. That term really tends to confuse people because it's a big word, it sounds really intimidating, you probably don't see it in many of your other classes, so you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. Sarcastically, of course. But actually, antecedents are very simple. An antecedent is just the word that a pronoun is referring to. So if I say, okay, If I say, Gary is the name of my pet snail. He is slimy. Right here, he, who's he referring to? Gary, who we mentioned in the previous sentence. So right here, Gary is the antecedent for the word he. That's all an antecedent is. It's not anything complicated. So if you can just remember that simple concept, that an antecedent is the word that a pronoun is referring to, that's all you need to know about them. Enough said. Go out there and change the world with your writing.